So yeah, this is another interesting clip that I found on Political Southwest. One of the main things on there that I think has gone completely under the radar is about Claire Parry O'Neill, who's ex-Tory. She left the Tory party, and she wrote an article in the Times saying that the Tories were just full of ideology and self-obsession. And she also applauded Keir Starmer for his leadership, which ordinarily would be big news. And I don't know whether it's because of so much that's going on, or because most of the papers are right wing, they decided not to go with it. I'm not quite sure. It's the first time that I've come across it, which doesn't necessarily mean that it's not plastered all over the place, but I didn't see it. And then the other two was in this clip they talk about how, ask the question, is there really a difference between Labour and Tories? And this was even mentioned in my last clip. It seems to be that there seems to be quite a bit of discussion about whether there is any difference in terms of, because with the Tories we've got like the highest tax in whenever. I can't be bothered to have a look, but we've got high taxes, which is something that's associated with Labour, and some of the policies that were brought in are similar to what Labour would bring in. But I mean, that wasn't the main thing. The most funny part of this clip is the part where the person representing the Green Party was asked the question about rejoining the EU, and it was like she was completely unprepared for the question, and it just got to a point where it was just like really awkward, because she just froze up and didn't know what to say. I thought they were going to cut to commercials, but it's the BBC and they don't have commercials. But it was quite funny to watch. So anyway, take a look and let me know what you think.
There's a great deal of difference, and a lot of it is
like
about about the sort of green prosperity scheme, where we're actually going to invest incredibly heavily in sustainable energy and make ourselves self-sufficient, a sort of superpower really of sustainable energy by 2030, and that will create lots of jobs. It will create much cheaper energy, and it will really.
People weren't talking about that on the streets. They were talking about.
They were talking about
inflation, and they're talking about all sorts of things which hit their pocket.
Yes, well, the cost of energy is the main driver of inflation, and it's also really hurting people, and it's hurting almost everyone across the board. And as you heard from the barber there as well, it's really incredibly important that we can keep energy costs down at the same time as helping the climate change thing. So and I think what's interesting is that knocking on doors, climate in Stroud anyway is a really big issue. And I was interested
perhaps not surprised about Stroud.
No, but Rishi didn't mention anything about climate. We are in a bit of a climate emergency.
Keir Starmer, as far as I could tell, certainly from
he was talking about actually taking back control, which is actually about investing in your local area. And
I want to ask you about that as well in a moment, because I'm not sure how many people are asking for that. But the reason I asked you if the parties were so close, because one of the most surprising political stories of the week featured the former Tory MP for Devizes in Wiltshire. Now, you'll remember her. She's been a guest on this programme many times, Claire Parry O'Neill. And she'd quit the Conservative Party, surprisingly. And she wrote in the Times that the Tories were dominated by ideology and self-obsession. And she applauded the political leadership of Labour's Keir Starmer. What did you make of that, David?
Well, I'm not surprised. I mean, I think Claire Parry is as I knew her, sorry. So I think she's a politician of conviction. But you've been in politics as long as I have, or you've been studying politics far longer than I have. And parties are a very broad church of people. And people come into parties, and parties move, and people's own opinions move, and it's a fluid situation. And for a time you're aligned with a party, and then you may move away from that party. I did the same with myself in the Liberal Party, which I belonged back in the 80s. Parties move, individuals move.
But you have to be quite close to move. You don't normally go across a huge divide.
You will always find people that are on the edge and about to move.
I mean, she hasn't said she wants to join the Labour Party. I have no idea if she wants to or not, but would she be welcome?
She'd be very welcome. I think what it shows really is Keir Starmer has been to really cut into that. He's seen as the sort of safest pair of hands and probably the best leader that we have available. And I think that's what the shame about another 2 years of this, and we've got to put up with this, which is very, very sad. And I think she reflects a lot of people's feelings about what's happened recently.
One of the people we stopped in the street, whether they wanted to or not, and asked some questions, said Brexit, talked about Brexit and wanted to rejoin. What's the Green policy on that? Just to sign up again?
I think importantly it is looking at the impact that Brexit has had, and I think looking at that impact in terms of who we have working in health and social care. So really talking honestly about that impact, and I think having a conversation.
Yeah, but that's not the question. Would you rejoin?
Yeah. Personally, I think...
Not personally, what's the party want to do?
It's about having more conversation about that.
Right, so you won't commit to... Would you commit to a softer Brexit, perhaps?
I honestly, I'm not sure where to go with that yet.
Okay, it's obviously a tricky subject, isn't it? Which is why Keir Starmer is talking about making Brexit work. Is that the right policy?
I think we've chosen to do this line, and we actually haven't given it a chance yet because we've got some lousy deals with the Northern Ireland Protocol, and also we've really soured our relationship with Europe. And I think we need to start getting back on with our European colleagues. That doesn't mean joining up with everything, but actually we need to make them. They're good friends, they're big trading partners, and
but you wouldn't rejoin. It's
not at the moment. No,
okay.
No.
David, just reel off a couple of wins for Brexiteers.
Well, I was a strong Remainer. And in fact, I ran the Remain campaign down in Somerset.
But they must have told you. They must have said, David, we got it right. Look at these gains.
I heard the arguments as well as everybody else did. But the decision was made. We've been through that, and we now have to make the most of it. And I'm not that far away from what you're just saying, because I think we need to sort out the Northern Ireland Protocol. We need to re-establish those relationships with Europe. We need to get some good trading agreements made, particularly with America. They haven't been done yet. I think it's then that we can then begin to judge whether it's a success or not.
Gosh, we're running out of time.